Hello, Childfree family and friends. Cody here. Welcome to Childfree Family's presentation, Let's Talk Money. This is episode 10, and we are talking about financial decisions for singles, couples, and groups. I know, sounds interesting, right? I'm Cody Hutzel, the founder of Childfree Family. For those that don't know, it's a micro social network for child-free people. And, back in the day when social media used to be fun, that's kind of what I'm trying to create, but just for child-free folks. There's no crazy algorithms telling you what to think. Nothing's tracking you because I don't care. And it's got a cool map. So if you get a profile, you'll get a little ping on a map with your city, not your house. I'm not getting that creepy. But you can maybe find some child-free friends. Anyway, I'm also the co-founder for the Child-Free Convention coming up in July of 2022. And it's a free virtual international event with various topics and speakers from all over the world. A very cool thing. But today I'm going to be joined by Dr. Jay Zigmund. Dr. Jay, what is up? Dr. Jay and his wife are child-free. He has a PhD in adult learning from the University of Connecticut and is a certified financial planner. A key thing to note about Dr. J is he is a fiduciary, which means he must put the needs and interests of his client above of his own. And on top of that, he is an advice-only and fee-only certified financial planner. So in other words, he's paid for his time by his clients. He doesn't receive kickbacks, commissions, incentives for selling products, which is cool in my opinion. But his clients pay him for his time and advice, and he helps them learn to manage and make their own financial decisions. Dr. J, how are you?
Hey, good. I didn't realize we've done 10 of these already.
It's 10, yeah, I know. Who'd have thunk it? And so for our 10th time, here's a quick reminder, everybody. This is our disclaimer. The following views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please seek the assistance of a professional to aid you in your financial decisions. So our topic today, if anyone looked at it, it seemed kind of interesting and odd if they were like, what is groups? What's going on here? But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So let's just start off with the obvious one. So financial planning for a single person.
Yeah. And before we even dig in there, any of these discussions have nothing to do with what your romantic status is. If you're single and dating somebody, you're single from a financial standpoint. If you're in a couple and you're whatever, it doesn't matter. When you look at couples and groups, that might look a little weird, but hey, people are buying a house now with 4 of their friends because they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean they have to be romantic. They might, who knows? But you have to look at it as, what is your financial plan? Does that make sense, Cody?
It makes sense to me. I've seen stories too. It's like, single parents that are divorced or they're buying houses together. They're like, you know what? We're going to do our own thing, raise our kids in a house. So, I mean, hey, parents are doing it. Child-free people can do it too.
Yeah, I think actually, and this is a side note, but I think you're going to see a few years down the road, people buying communities together, in their elderly years, all child-free folks, and just, hey, we bought. I heard somebody that wanted to buy a castle for all the single ladies over 55 who are child-free and just live all in a castle. Castle's a little drafty, so, but hey.
Well, you got a moat and whatever. So that sounds like fun. I mean, my wife and I joke about having like a child-free compound in the future where it's like for child-free people in tiny houses or something. But pipe dreams.
Yeah. We're not allowed to say compound. That gets a bad.
I know.
The correct term is intentional community.
There we go.
Intentional community. No longer communes or anything like that, but it's the same concept that worked years ago. So, all right, Cody, how long has it been since you've been single?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, me neither. It's been.
I've been out of it. Thank God with all the dating apps and all that. Whew, I feel for y'all out there that are single. I mean, if you're single, want to be single, hey, more power to you. Not a problem with that. But if you're looking.
Yeah. And for me, I don't know. I've been married 12, 13 years. So been quite a while. So I don't know that I know the single life, but the single financial planning is pretty common. So here's the thing to keep in mind. Child-free folks, 32.1% will never marry. That doesn't mean that they're not a couple, they're not in a long-term relationship. They don't have that piece of paper that says, I'm married. So you can either do your finances as a single, or we'll talk about how to be a couple and do 2 single financial plans. But you have to think about it a little differently. So the bonus of being a single person is it's just yours. You don't have to fight with anybody on how to spend money. My wife and I have had a few of those, going, what are you spending money on? She just sent me a message. Hey, my friend wants us to go to a destination wedding in Canada in like 3 weeks. I'm like, yeah, I don't have the extra money for that. But that's like the fun of being married. So single, you're on your own. The downside of that is you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I talk about with single folks is you want to make sure you have a plan, but you want to have an accountability partner. I don't care who that is. It's not really like a financial person. You're not like, hey, I need a CFP to check out. No, you can, but you need somebody to at least go, hey, Cody, I don't think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife, I'm sure, does that for you. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, back and forth. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And part of that is when you're single, you can get stuck in your head. So a great common one of this one is, I got to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But when you're alone, it just gets stuck and you're on that replay. And somebody from accountability standpoint just says, stop. Is that going to get you to your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, you said you were going to pay off your debt this year. How are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
student debts, or like really a car. Like people might say, hey, you're out on your own, you want to buy your first new car. And someone might be like, hey, look, I bought a new car. If you want the experience of buying a new car, I get it. But like, there's nothing wrong with one that's a couple years old and you're going to save a ton of money.
Yep. So you need an accountability partner that can call you on your BS. Okay. That's just the way it is we can all justify any expense. I had somebody yesterday say, well, what do you do if housing is crazy right now? We're right now in April of 2022 and housing prices are insane. The mortgages are up and everything's a little bit crazy. He says, well, what do you do if you have to buy a house right now? And I was like, you don't have to buy a house right now. You can rent. Yeah. It is an option. It still works. So you need somebody that can do that to you and say, hey, nope, you don't need the new Mercedes. Or, hey, Cody, you're saving every penny and you need a new Mercedes. Either way.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, yeah. So just a confidant, someone that, and do they need to be also kind of in your situation, or could it, if you're single, could it be a married friend that you have?
It'd be great if you had a child-free single folk to compare, because they're going to understand things differently. So I don't want to get stuck in the child-free bingo of, hey, you got all the money in the world, so you can. And there's that assumption. Ideally, you want to partner up with somebody who you're calling them out and they're calling you out. It's a mentorship type relationship. All right, we're going to have a cup of coffee or a virtual drink or whatever adult beverage you want.
Yeah.
And we're going to go over our finances.
Yeah. How you doing on your goals? Like just, catching up.
And I will tell you, that takes some trust to share that. Bonus is now with Zoom, you can actually share things and they can see it and work that through. But you want to have somebody that at least is in your same type of life. So for example, if I had an accountability partner who makes triple what I do, they're going to look at things a little differently than I do. It's not that they can't help me. It's just we're not in the same ballpark.
If I call Uncle Warren Buffett and I'm like, hey, Warren, like.
We just learned Cody's uncle is Warren Buffett. And now we know why. I'm joking. So
it is a joke.
We'll have to check on that, Dave. No.
Fact check.
So you want to have that accountability partner. That's the first thing. The second thing as a single is you have no choice but to make sure all your paperwork's in place. That means your living will, your will, power of attorney, and medical proxy and executor. So I'm going to step through each of those. When you're in couples or groups, and if you're working singly, you're going to do the same thing. But I want you to make sure you have this paperwork. So we start with the living will. Living will says, do I want to, what's my medical options? Do I want to stay on machines? Do I not? And who's going to make the decision for me? That's one of those that's really hard when you're single. You have no next of kin. So the hospital's like, oh, who do we call?
Yeah.
You need to have that paperwork. So you need to figure out somebody to do that. Some people have taken the thing, and I do like it, of paying a professional trustee to do that. So let me explain this one for a second. A trustee is somebody who is, there's all technical term of a fiduciary. They have to put your financial interest first, but you pay them to follow your guidelines. You can do the same for your medical as your financial. You're paying them. But the bonus there is you're not relying on your nephew or your friend to do this for you. And you don't have to be a burden or anything else. You just write the check and that's what it is. And it's usually like local banks or like a local attorney might do it, because you want somebody that literally, if they have to, could get in the car and go do things for you.
Is that like a one-time fee or is that like a recurring charge?
Yeah,
Depending.
it's usually an annual fee if they're going to do
Mhm,
something for you, but it also might be packaged.
mhm,
It's like if the bank has all your accounts there, they might go, yeah, we'll take care of that for you, to keep you as a customer.
mhm.
And they're required by law to be fiduciary. There's this thing called custody where they actually have control of your accounts. They get audited every year on this. Like they have all the paperwork. That's the bonus versus my nephew who, I don't know you, but I got some good nephews and I got some bad nephews. No, I'm joking. But, you never know, or your friend, or all those really sad movies where you see where somebody took advantage of someone else
Mhm.
and all that. So a professional trustee can do that for your living will and your will. So the living will is for your medical stuff, and then you have a medical power of attorney or medical proxy. Each state has its own verbiage, so watch that. Then your will is, hey, what happens to my stuff when I pass? That can be very simple, but you need an executor who actually does the work. But the other thing is what's called a durable power of attorney. This one's a little weird. So this is that question of who takes care of you if you are incapacitated.
Mhm.
I mean, let's be real. If I'm dead,
Yeah.
I don't care. If I'm incapacitated, I need somebody I trust like 110%. That they're not like, I'm going to sell everything he owns and put him in a
Mhm.
home.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have that. And the durable power of attorney, what you can do is they call them springable. That's a technical term, but they only go into effect when something's happened. Now, if you do that, whoever, often it's the same person as the medical proxy, as the durable power of attorney and others, make sure they have all the paperwork because that's important. So I was working with somebody the other day and their parents have everything in their safe deposit box. Well, if you die, I can't get into your safe deposit
You
box.
got to find that key.
Well, even if you have it, you need to have
Yeah.
signatory and all that.
Yep.
You need to know where the bank is. And
Death certificate, everything. Yeah.
so I had somebody, the will was in the safe deposit box, which says who's supposed to do this stuff. Now you're in court,
Yeah.
okay? And probate courts are slow, let's call it that, inexpensive. So you want to make sure that you have that documentation in advance. The other thing you can do is you can add them as what's called a trusted person on your account. This one's a little technical, but it's a big issue for elderly who start losing some of their mental capacities and others. There's a lot of elder abuse.
Oh yeah.
So a trusted person says, hey, I trust this person to make decisions. It's kind of like in the medical, you sign the HIPAA waiver saying, hey, they're okay looking at my file. You want to make sure that's in place before you have any problems.
Mhm.
So when do you do that? Today.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't matter what age you're at. You can there's some online services that do it, local attorneys do it, whatever. It's not expensive. Each state's got its own thing. One state, you have to have like 2 witnesses. One has to be notarized. Figure out your state's local issue. But get that paperwork today. Even if that person might not be your accountable person, you might not be in your financial plan, at least you have the documentation to cover you. The other thing that ends up happening with that is you'll match your beneficiaries and your accounts to that plan. So, for the single people that were married, this one's a nightmare of, hey, my ex is still on
Mhm.
as my beneficiary or still on as my power of attorney or still on. That gets
That can get real hairy.
oh yeah, I can tell you some fun stories on that one that would make you cry, but it's like you don't think of these things because your medical record, like, oh, I've moved 3 states. Yeah, but it's still computerized and it's still got your ex in there.
Mhm.
So you make sure you want to update those at a regular basis. But the bottom line from a financial standing point, single's pretty easy as long as you have somebody to provide accountability and somebody you trust. What do you think about that, Cody?
I mean, there's different scenarios out there, and I feel for the folks that maybe they don't have a sibling that they could fall back to. They may not have really any family to fall back to, and they may not have really built any close relationships with friends since like school days. Maybe they've moved on, or maybe they didn't have close friends then, and so yeah, they're literally like kind of out there doing their own thing. So yeah, I mean, what would you recommend for a person like that? Just to, like you said, maybe go to the bank or just Google trustee in their city and just see what pops up.
Yeah, and chances are whoever you have a banking relationship with they already exist. If you ask old school was the local bank was trustees for a lot of stuff. They've just always been for like nonprofits, other things. That still exists. If you have one of the big banks, you're an online bank, and probably not.
Yeah.
So it is part of that relationship. The other thing to think about is if you're single, just working through this stuff step by step, and you're not alone. Reach out to people, talk to people. Later on I'll tell you about I actually opportunities so you can actually come work in a group on it. But the point is just get somebody to bounce things off of, and then make sure you have the right paperwork.
Yeah. And so that's just a quick note for anyone, put in the comments, like what's your situation? Do you have these things in order? Yes, no, you're working on it, thinking about it, let us know. We're live at the moment. This will all be archived later, put on our Childfree Family YouTube and Facebook page. But right now it's live. So if you join in, you can even throw a question at us. We're here to help. So let's jump in the next thing. It is planning with couples.
Yeah. So couples, I intentionally want to think about this as, are you married or not? Even if you're married, there are some differences between them, but I just finished a whole bunch of research for my new book, and the amount of people that were in relationships for decades and never had a formal marriage is amazing. I mean, so that's a child-free thing. On average, I told you 32.1% for childless. 2.5% of parents were never married in their life. So that means just about all of them.
Yeah.
So we have a different way of looking at it, and that's okay. But you want to think about it. So let's go through the marriage stuff on should you get married. So Cody, how long have you been married?
Since 2010, so 12 years now.
How long have you been happily married?
Beyond 12 years.
That's a trick question. Okay, I wanted to see if you fell for it, but that's the classic. I've been married for 12 years and happily married for 5. Now, that's a joke. But you've been married a while. Would you do it again?
If I found someone as great as my wife, which I don't know if I would. So, but I do recommend it to people. If you can find that person, marriage is a beautiful thing. It truly is a partnership. It's you and them against the world. You're a team. It's like your own little mini business. You're partners in it. You make decisions together, and you got to trust each other. And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and when I talk about marriage, I'm not talking about the ceremony. I'm not talking about your beliefs on marriage. I'm talking about a legal issue. It's a legal and financial issue. Romantically, that's up to you. Okay. How long should you be dating for? That's a whole different show. I think we're going to we'll leave that to Lenora. She can deal with that one.
Well, you said like, was it 2.5% of people that have kids have been married? I mean,
have not. 90, so that'd be 90. What is that? 97.5.
Yeah, have been married, but I would think that's probably because they had a kid and they were married. And that statistic again doesn't say how long they were married or how many other times they've been married. So it's
were
like
they happy?
Were they happy? It's a big mixed bag. Like sometimes companies use big statistics like that. It's like, oh, it makes it seem like we're a bunch of heathens that just out there living that child-free life. And but there's not all that information given in that 97.5% either. So
yeah, and by the way, if marriage isn't for you, that's cool too. We just have to have another plan. So let me go through the good and bad of marriage, and each of these are going to have kind of an up and down, and let you decide.
There you go.
I am not weighing in on should you get married. I'll leave that to Cody. All right. So the most common answer I hear why people got married, let's ignore the love debate, is healthcare. I want to be on their insurance. Like, this is like an absolute, like, hey, I went down to the town hall. We signed the papers. I'm on their insurance.
Some people are getting married literally just for that. Like, they're, just kind of a platonic relationship, and they're not dating anybody seriously. They don't see marriage in their future with another person. And so they might have a friend and they're like, well, let's do this for the benefit, Yep.
And it's been a topic of a couple of movies and some fun stuff in there. So, yeah, health benefits, that's a great opportunity. Take a look. Some companies are starting to offer health benefits for long-term relationships. Now, how you document that? That's between you and the company. I'm not sure how that works.
We met back on MySpace or AOL, and they'll be like, okay, that's legit. That's like definitely old
Yeah. Actually, Cody, it's
relationship.
only usually like 2 or 5 years or something like
Okay.
that. But that's very few companies that are doing that. So what happens is being married gets you into like the spousal benefits of healthcare. Some companies offer life insurance. Some, there's like a whole list, and you're either in or out. My wife works in academia. One of the benefits there is if a spouse can get a free college in some areas.
Mhm.
But if you're just shacking up, no. So it's one of those that there's not much way around. Okay, this is one of those you cannot make a difference. You can't say, hey, blah, blah, blah. So that's just a debate on the paperwork. Now, the second one is this debate on taxes. Now, you will hear people swear you save money by being married, and you'll have people swear you save money by being single. They're both right. They are 100% right for their situation. So there's this weird math. So when most of the tax laws were made, it was assumption that one spouse was making all the money and one wasn't. So most of the rules are written around there, and there's some penalties for being married, filing single. And they don't call it penalties, but essentially you get charged money of, you're hiding money from one person to the other. And the bottom line taxes, no clue. It's like you'd have to run the math on do you save money at being married or not, or single. By the way, very rare for us as child-free going to qualify as head of household unless we had like a dependent somehow, like a family member, or even your elderly parent living with it could be a dependent, qualifies head of household, but it's going to be married or single. Once you're married, you're required to file married, even if you filed married filing single. And that's just IRS making things very confusing.
What?
But the tax benefits, it depends on your situation.
Yeah.
There's no other weird, way around that. The only way to do it is to like do a fake tax return and see what happens. Which, by the way, people are like, hey, date night on Friday, we're doing taxes.
Play with numbers on paper.
So keep that in mind. Now, your credit together could be a benefit or it could hurt you. So let's say you're applying for a house, because we're going to keep using that house example. So if my wife and I apply for a house, what they're going to do is they're going to take our combined income for the debt to income ratios, which means we're going to be able to afford more house in general. But what they're going to do is take the lowest credit score between the two of us. So we get the benefit of the income, but the minus of the credit.
Which might be something that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, oh, my spouse has way better credit than me, so that's going to help us get the house, basically. And it's like, well, no, they're onto that. They're hip to that idea.
Yeah, by the way, another date night idea, credit report sharing.
Oh my gosh.
When you get to you're going to get engaged, or you're going to be serious.
I mean, that should be like third date material, in my opinion. It's like, bring out your credit history, your driving history. Like, let's just hash it all out right now.
Well, what the credit report should really tell you is what you're doing with money. I don't really care about the numbers. People have college debt and whatever. But are they living in debt, or are they, one's living with debt, one's got none, one's got, never pays on time, one always does. So when you're married, you kind of mix those. The other thing is, depending on the state, you may gain some of those debts from each other, share some of them, not. It gets weird on whether or not you have responsibility. So just keep that in mind. There is a good thing with being married, that you can gift as much as you want to each other, which normally there's a $16,000 cap. So if I bought my wife a car, no big deal. If we're dating and I bought her a car, that would probably go over the gift tax. I'd have to file with the IRS or pay on that. There's also an estate tax limit. Now, this is a little ridiculous, but married, if you give away to another generation, you can give away $21 million and never pay tax on it.
That's all of our goal right there. Give away $21 million.
You got an extra $21 million, Cody? Because I'll be your kid for that price.
We'll figure the paperwork out.
Sorry, it's 24.12 million. Sorry, it went up. 24 million. So not a big issue for us. It's actually a bigger issue for people with kids, because you can actually pass down the estates. And that's why you'll hear about generational wealth, and they actually don't pay tax on it forever. That's another scam. But gifting does become a thing. Also, being married helps you with medical directives. So even without a living will, my wife could go in the hospital and say, "Hey, we're married." They may actually ask for a copy of the marriage license if they were confused, especially if we have different last names. That's a common one. If you have different last names, you better carry the paperwork. But that gives her at least some say. If we were dating for 10 years and never married, they're like, "Yeah, that's nice. You're a friend. We're going to listen to his parents," or if the parents aren't around, they listen to anyone. So that's one of those little funky ones. The last one on marriage, and this is just a call out. There are 9 states that do things differently than everybody else.
Of course there are.
Of course. It's just how it goes. They're community property states. And I'm going to read those because I can never get them in order. So Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Whew. If you're one of those states, got to look at how they work with property, because there's kind of the way it works is in most states, and they each can do things a little differently. Anything that's in the marriage, you split. In other states, there might be caveat to say, "I bought this, it's mine." And that's where we start getting in this debate, and we get a prenups and all that. But that's a completely different topic that I am not going into this thing. But
save it for Hollywood.
My point is, if you're in one of those 9 states, got to read that. So here's the thing. That's all happens when you get married, like immediately, all of that stuff. If you're not married, you need a plan for all of that. What do you think about that, Cody?
Well, it almost seems like it's kind of the built-in benefit of getting married. It's like, well, you have a lot of these things, checking the boxes, getting a pass on, to have paperwork taken care of or make things a little bit easier down the road. So, it just goes along with, marrying for love or for convenience, I guess, to have that person there as your ride or die kind of situation. So what do you think about the couples in combining finances?
All right, so now we've gotten married out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we have to look at is, are you doing things together or not? And we're going to talk about 3 different types: combining finances, we're just running side by side like roommates, or this weird mix. By the way, you'll find I don't like the weird mix because it's just never clear. So the combined finances says, okay, so this happens to be me and my wife. Everything's combined. All of our finances together, all of our financial plans together, all of our goals are together. We have to find a balance between what she wants to buy and what I want to buy, which sometimes is its own challenge. Especially, you can put money aside for fun pocket money, but especially when you don't agree on what it is, small things here, there always mess you up. But combined finances, you're in it together. The good thing of that is you're both going in the same direction. That's the bonus. Downside is it takes a lot of communication, a lot of trust. Do you and your wife combine your finances, Cody?
We do. And, when we both had separate banks and different bank accounts at the time. And when I brought her to my bank to have her put on to my account, literally the banker was sitting across the desk and they're like, "Are you sure?" It's like, "Yeah, well, yeah, she's right here." "Yeah, I'm sure. Like, let's do this." But I can imagine that. I mean, they kind of see everything, and they're like, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this?" I mean, I don't. If you're in that scenario, I don't know what you would do. But I mean, the way we saw our situation and being married is, let's combine everything, and everything's split. Where all the funds go into one pot, and everything's paid out of it, and there you go.
Yeah, and it is a trust thing. So here's what happens. My wife and I are on the account together. If she wants to stop at the bank on the way home and just pull it all out, she can. I can say nothing about it. Bank's not going to stop her.
You'll just get a notification of her with a Mai Tai on a beach somewhere.
Go on. She left me with the dogs. Oh, wait.
No, she probably
take the dogs and leave me. That's how that would work. But that's the downside of combined finances. The good part of that is if one of us passes away, the other one just kind of owns it.
There's no like big paperwork issues to go through because your name is on the account, which is one of the big reasons that we did it too. And even with like our stock portfolio account, I made sure that I had her put on there as well. That way, if something happens to me, she doesn't have to go through all the rigmarole of proving that we're married and sending in documents. It's like she has access to it like right there to make any changes or whatever.
Yeah, and where it becomes an issue is the house. If you own a house together, it passes. By the way, This is one of those where that state where we talked about, there's some states that are special. There's some rules there. They get weird, but I don't get kicked out. Okay.
Yeah.
If we're doing them separately, if it's just in her name and she dies, technically I'm a squatter. And my in-laws own the house. So you have to be careful on that.
And I'm sure there's some scenarios where couples do this specifically. They only have one spouse on a house because maybe the other one is in heavy risk with whatever business they're doing as far as finances go, and they want to keep things in different streams. But yeah, if something happens, then yeah, it's no longer your house. The bank's going to say, hey, vamonos.
Yeah, and there's some horror stories there. And here's the thing. If you're combining your finances, especially if you're not married, you need a partnership agreement. So you're going to need something on paper that says we're doing this together. And the way we look at it in partnerships, there's 5 Ds you got to watch out for. So let me run these through. Divorce, drugs, disability, death, and disinterest. Now, that's just kind of, they want to have a mnemonic that works. Bottom line is there's a lot of reasons why people want to get out. As child-free folks, we have to add a 6th D, diapers. What happens if somebody all of a sudden changes their mind? I need a plan. So the partnership agreement needs to say, what are we doing? Married, that you already have a legal partnership agreement from the government. Not married, you need to get one written up. And I do encourage it with that type of agreement that you actually work with a local attorney on that, because you want to make sure you have that all right. So for example, let's say Cody and I are friends and we want to buy a house together. That's fine, as long as we have an agreement on how we're combining it and we have it all written out. The nightmare is we buy a house together. One of us says, I want out. And the other one's like, no. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Or the other one that happens often. I want to do this repair to the house or this improvement. And the other person's like, yeah, no. Now we're going downhill. So if you're going to combine them completely, have an agreement, or be married. So let's go to the next option.
Yeah.
So the next option is, I call them roommates. You run 2 separate financial plans, you share some bills, you're doing your own thing. Good thing is, you're essentially single. Right? Now, if you're married and you haven't combined your finances, you're getting into a weird world because the state and the federal government may think they're combined. Your mortgage may think they're combined, but you don't think they're combined. Does that make sense to you, Cody?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. They're going to say, if you're married, you have a certificate, separate incomes. It's like, but you're paying the utilities together, you're paying the mortgage together, rent together, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, your finances, in their eyes, it's pooled money, even though it's in 2 different streams.
Yep. And you're going to be married filing, even if you filed single, you're still married filing something on the taxes. By the way, there are some quirks where marrying filed single might save you some on student loans. And there's some like weird things that do fit in there. But realize if you're married, they're not truly separate in the eyes of the government. But let's say you're not married. You're going to do separate finances. You're going to follow the same advice of the single folks. You're going to run your own thing. And then the big thing here is document whatever bills you're going to pay to each other and why and how. So the common one is like, I pay the house, you pay the utilities, or like there's like some split like that. Make sure you get that in writing and make sure you understand, hey, I paid that bill or I didn't. Do a Google Sheets you can share or something. So you know what you're doing and you're putting some documentation on this. The hard part is like, hey, I've been in a long relationship for 10 years. I love the person, but I'm going to treat him like a roommate. Yes. Financially, you are. Romantically, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Financially, we're running 2 different checkbooks in this case. We're running 2 different businesses. They may or may not be the beneficiary on my stuff. I may give it to them. I may not. If I'm married, you can do like, it's called a simple will. It's called I love you will. I give you my stuff. You give me mine. Yours. That's it. Well, if we're single and coupled, we might have some other spin on it. I want to give mine to rescue the monkeys and my wife wants to rescue the dogs. Whatever it is. But you need to have a plan for keeping that separate. The challenge is when people go to the next one. Let's go to the next one, which just makes it weird, which is called a hybrid. So we do some things together and we do other things alone. The classic of this is yours, mine, and ours. So we do the house together, but everything else we do alone. Or we do travel in the house, or The problem is people trying to use this as a bridge to combining their finances, but you're making it harder because you're like 1 foot in, I'm single, and 1 foot in, I'm doing it together. And the result is that we get into the trust and communication issues. It becomes a nightmare, and I see this sometimes when friends buy houses together. So the house we're doing together, and then we're doing the single, but our goals with the house are not the same, or our goals for saving are not the same. And it starts like, it's possible. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
That makes sense, Cody?
Yeah. Well, in a lot of the child-free Facebook groups, it comes up a lot that, I'm with my boyfriend, or, we're going to get married. Should we combine finances? And people give their scenarios and situations, which again, hey, in the comments, do the same thing here. But, they say, oh no, we have our own accounts, but then we have one joint account that we put in our finances for the, rent, mortgage, utilities, groceries, whatever it's going to be. But they have their own separate play money, or their own separate, whatever they do with that money. So yeah, it's not uncommon, but I can definitely see where it can get a little squirrely.
Yeah. And what I hear people say is, well, but I need to have money to buy gifts. And cool. What you do is combine finances and you have pocket money. That's what we call it. It's just like, I get $200 a month and my wife gets $200 a month to do whatever we want with. And we don't question that. You want to save yours and buy something big? You want to spend it all on something? Cool. That's the way to do it. Like, we're combined, but we have a little spending money separate. That is all, we're on the same goals versus, well, we're going to do this together, this separate, but this separate, and this, like, huh? And what happens is the hybrid is where the fight starts, because we don't know if we're together or not. If we're two roommates, do separate finances, that's easy. If we're together, that's easy. The somewhere in between just gets sticky.
Yeah, I could see that.
The other thing that happens, the way I look at it from a financial planner, if you're doing it together, that's one financial plan. Doing it singly, it's two. Hybrid is three. So now we're getting more and more complex. And what happens is, as you add more financial plans, you have multiple goals, and they start competing with each other.
You have to plan for person A, person B, and then the combined person C.
It does work, and I've done it before. It's just really hard. So let's talk about groups.
All right. So
I'm seeing in the child-free community both romantic and non-romantic groups together doing financial planning. And that's fine. Doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't, your relationship with the group doesn't matter.
This isn't some child-free cult that we're making. This isn't like a...
Well, no, I mean, people go, well, I often, when I do my stuff, I say I handle financial, I do financial planning for child-free individuals, couples, and groups. And they go, groups? What are you talking about? No, this could be the four, we talk about the four elderly ladies owning the castle, or it could be a polycule with, a whole bunch of romantic intertwines. Anyone that's been in a group, either in a friend group or romantic, no, communication and trust becomes a big issue. So the first option we have is group, and we're doing it all together. Just combine. Here's what you just did. You formed an LLC in most states. That's a business. And the business buys the house together or whatever else, and we're all on the same business. It works. Here's some rules on it. One, got to have the partnership agreement. And that partnership agreement now not only has to have all those D's, but it has to have what is called a buy-sell agreement. So if I'm in a group of four friends, we buy a house together, I have to have some rule of how I buy out the other person.
Yeah, I call it an exit strategy. Like, what's, do the pull cord. What's up?
Yeah. Or if one of us dies, does the other one just get it? And it gets into that gift tax problem because now I'm giving stuff to people that I'm not married to. Remember, in the United States, you can only marry one person. That's a technical thing. So a group automatically is a business. That might mean different insurance, different legalese. Got to have an attorney dry that up. They don't care why you're a group, so don't tell them. Just, we're buying this together. We want to have a partnership agreement. So you're going to be doing that together. And one of the challenges here is make sure you have something for voting in there of how do we make decisions. If you have a group of four, you get stuck in the tie problem.
Yeah.
I want to fix the house, and I want to fix the house, and the other two don't. So Sometimes one person has an extra vote. Sometimes I've seen somewhere it's flip a coin.
Mhm.
If we get tied, we flip a coin and we stick with it. That's fine. You just need an answer.
Need something.
Combined group, you're running a business. Not a big deal. The second one is I'm in a group and I'm doing it separately. Well, you're 4, 5, 6, 7 single people all doing things together. You're in the same physical structure maybe or what, but you've got your own individual plan. Not a big deal. Follow the single. Couple things to think about here. When you get to the medical proxy and the power of attorney, you might be better off getting somebody not in the group because now we get into the debate of the nightmare. So I worked as a medic for a while. And what you don't want is 4 people around the bedside debating what to do with your medical decision.
Or for everyone to dogpile on one person and they get in charge of everybody and then something happens to them. It's like.
So what I have seen in some groups is, well, this person handles all the medical, this person handles all the financial. It works, but then you need to have a way to get them out, especially if the group changes. So trustee is a good answer here too. Make sure you have that documentation. But what I do encourage you is any type of group structure, everybody needs a copy of all the paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
And you need it on both phone and in paper. So we're right now, I don't know about you, Cody, but we're in tornado season here. And the tornado warnings have been going off left and right. Well, all my paperwork is gone, literally up in, at least it's on my phone so that I can use it somewhere. So that's kind of one of those balancing act. Make sure you get there. The third option is this hybrid thing. And I put on the paperwork, good luck. I'm in the South. We can say, bless your heart. This is a nightmare. Okay. So here's what happens. So if I have a group of 3, let's just start with that. I effectively have what I call factorial number of financial plans. 3 times 2 times 1. So I actually have 6 financial plans just for a group of 3. I consider myself pretty smart, but I'm not sure I can keep straight. Which one is going where? Like, it gets really crazy. Some people will do like the business buys the house. We're all together on that. Never completely single. That's an option. We're not really combined, but we have a goal together. That's workable. When we start kind of going more than that, it gets really kooky on, well, I own part of this and you want to do this. And, when it comes to group, either do everything together or do it singly is going to be the cleanest way to do that. A business is an option. You can buy it with a business, and then you all own part of the business. But then the business is making the decision, not the individuals, technically. So this hybrid, like this is one of those, like the communication issues that go along with it. I'm like, you're asking for a fight. Does that make sense, Cody?
It does. And the group feature, it's something, it may sound foreign now, but to the people again in the future watching this archive, they were like, oh yeah, like I know some friends that they're buying a house together, or whatever, they're flipping houses. Maybe that's a little business that they're starting up, and whatever. I mean, it's to me it seems like it almost makes sense for the upcoming generation, given the housing market issue that we're having now. If there's not like a massive correction and things come down or stabilize, it's gonna be so hard for one person to buy a house. And so if you're not married, definitely harder. So then you're looking at like a group aspect of purchasing a house to live in. So
yeah, and I think you and I might be a little bit of old fuddy-duddies.
Might be.
But this group thing is very popular.
Yeah.
Romantic or not, it's something I'm seeing regularly. It's not like it's like just a one-off here or there. And what happens is, so I was just having this conversation with one of my colleagues. The financial software just explodes because the financial software either assumes you're single or married. It doesn't even get a couple that's not married.
Yeah.
In many cases. And then a group, it goes, so you throw away a lot of it. But I think what I'm trying to do is bring it up as a discussion, so you're being intentional about it, not, we'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. Or we heard of this thing, let's give it a try, without really diving into, like you said, they might choose the hybrid, which might be the most difficult one for them to try to figure out. But they're like, oh, but we're all pals. Like, we got this.
So what I hear from both the hybrid groups and couples is let's try combining some stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like being kind of pregnant. You can't, okay?
That's where you go, Yoda. do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah. Here's my thing, though, on financial planning. My rule, if you're working with me, if you're a couple or a group and you're doing financials together, you got to all be at the meetings. So I just did an article on there's a growing thing called financial infidelity or financial cheating. And what happens is one person in a couple or group says, you handle it. And everybody else is like, all right. And that person does
Where'd
something.
Bob get that jet ski?
Taxes are a big one.
Yeah.
Gambling, drinking, other things like that. And my answer is you got to be part of the process. That's it. So I think my point is you got to have a plan. You got to have a structure that works for you. And you have to have made a decision. Are we doing this together? Are we doing it separately? And then work it through. So if I work with a couple and they're doing financials completely single, we're doing 2 separate plans. We might not even meet together because what one person wants might actually not fit the other one. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah. And you gave a little bit of a tease earlier, so we'll kind of wrap it up here. But your site, childfreewealth.com, you're looking at having a special thing happening soon.
Yeah. So I've started opening up on Fridays at 10 a.m. Central, group open hours. You can sign up, come in, bring your questions. It is not broadcast like this. Okay? We set the Vegas rules. What happens there stays there. But it's an opportunity just to bounce things around. I also do offer that, if you want to meet one-on-one, I have a no-cost meeting. We do that. But the group, the nice thing is it's accountability to each other. Mm-hmm. You can work it through. It's limited to 12 people. You can sign up at Childfree Wealth. The other one, since we're plugging, coming out June 1st, my new book, Portraits of Childfree Wealth.
It's in your hand.
Not for resale, it's an author copy, but it exists.
It's there. That's stories. Awesome, man. Congrats.
I'm pretty excited about it. The big thing, so I put this out to a whole bunch of readers, and they said, every single one of them said, oh, I found somebody like me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like this story because, and I hate to say it, but in the child-free community, it's nice to know we're not so weird. There's a lot of us out there, it's 11% of the U.S. over 55, but it's nice to have some stories and go, oh, that's how they did it. So, well,
and just kind of tying that back into your group, like to me, that's the cool thing about what you're doing with that is not just the accountability, but just hearing other people's scenarios and stories. And while you're a wealth of information, someone may have literally have lived through what they're talking about, and they might be able to provide some advice as well, or just have a sounding board, or as my wife and I say, a peer. Like it's very hard for child-free people to find a peer, especially in the financial realm, because of just the world that we kind of run in.
The other thing, Cody, let's be real. People would much rather have a group and talk about their sex life than they would their finances.
That's a whole different group. Man.
It's just, you're both having topics, but people don't want to talk about their finances.
Yeah, well, that's private. Finances and voting are so private. Don't ever talk about that. But yeah. So.
The truth is we're all struggling, even if we're doing well, we still have some struggles. So.
Trying to figure it out. Yeah. And so folks in the comments in the future, let us know what you guys would like Dr. J and I to talk about. Our next episode 11, we're going to try to focus on balancing saving with the guilt of spending. And that's something that I definitely fall in the category of. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Any parting words, Dr. J?
I think we're going to put Cody on the couch for that one. Oh, Cody, help me. By the way, also, don't forget to put a plug for the Child-Free Convention.
Childfree Convention's coming up July 30th and 31st, 2022. 2-day event, tons of speakers, tons of awesome topics. Really looking forward to it. There's a lot of planning going on behind the scenes. Go to childfreeconvention.com for info. Sign up for the email list so you get little updates and sneak peeks as they come out. But yeah, and thank you, Dr. J. You stepped up. You're not only a speaker, you're also going to be one of our sponsors for the event. So we really appreciate that. And yeah, it's a super cool. The encouragement we're getting from the child-free community it's humbling, it's overwhelming. We're doing this for you guys. It's 100% volunteer driven. No one's getting paid to speak. No one's getting paid to put it on, for sure. I can tell you that. It's all for just the love of the child-free community and providing Q&As and questions and topics for what our lives are like, what's like to be in a child-free lifestyle. So yeah. Very cool. So with that being said, thank you. And we'll see everybody next time. Peace.